In regional news, protesters have returned to the streets of Bangkok to show their disapproval of the government. Large groups have been marching towards the government house. The situation has been escalating the past hour, with protesters breaking through police barricades. Prime Minister Prayut has earlier offered to cancel the emergency decree banning large gatherings. But that's only if there are no violent incidents tonight. So let's get right up to speed with what's going on the ground. May Wong and Saksisai Sombat are at the Government House in Bangkok. First, we'll go to May. May, tell us how protesters have been responding to Prime Minister Prayut's speech.
I'm right here at Government House, right in front of the Prime Minister's office, as you can see at the back. And when you ask me how are the protesters reacting, this is exactly how the protesters are reacting. They are turning a deaf ear on Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha's speech much earlier. He gave a televised address to the entire nation, calling the protesters to put a stop to what they're doing, asking the protesters, almost pleading with the protesters to say, do not come out in droves anymore, and Prime Minister is willing to talk to them. I want to show you exactly how big the crowd is over here in the Government House. They have actually marched from Victory Monument to the Government House, and that is more than about 2 hours walk, but that did not deter the protesters one bit. They have come over here. They are very peaceful at this stage. The police are all surrounding them right now, and they have barbed wires also protecting the Government House to prevent the people from going in. Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha has actually said in his televised address earlier that he cannot accede to the mobsters, as he calls them, or the protesters' demands. He said that he cannot run a country based on the protesters' demands. He needs to be taking care of the entire country, not just a group of the protesters here in Thailand. And therefore, he has extended this olive branch to say, please, let's come together. Let's go through the parliamentary system and let us have a dialogue to resolve matters. But as you can see, obviously, this goes to show you that the protesters are not interested anymore. They have actually told me that they are tired of the rhetoric that's coming out from Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha and his government. They have said that unless he steps down, unless the government quits, unless there is a change in the constitution and a reform of the monarchy, they will continue to make their demands heard. Also, I just want to show you the kind of police over here, making sure that there is continuing law and order, making sure there is no violence. Well, Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha has said that he will consider lifting the severe emergency decree that is imposed on Bangkok, that is currently ongoing right now, if there is no violent clashes. But obviously, it depends on what is going to happen as the night pans out, because it looks like the protesters are here and they're here to stay. They're not going anywhere until Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha actually steps out to actually talk to them, or the fact that he actually quits from government. But obviously, this has been going on for a long time right now, and obviously also the protesters are not giving up. In fact, I saw very young children coming out here. 10-year-old girl I met earlier, 14-year-old student, and all of them are out here, mind you, with their parents as well. And what the parents told me, they want to teach their children about democracy in this country. They want the children to see with their own eyes how democracy is going to pan out in Thailand and what is their future going to look like. So you can just imagine the fact that the parents are encouraging their kids to come out. And when I ask them, aren't you afraid of any violence that will take place? They say, you know what? The children will need to learn, and the children will need to see for themselves, because this is their country, this is their future.
Let's get across to Saksith now. Saksith, May explaining to us that protesters are turning a deaf ear to what the Prime Minister is saying, his olive branch. They don't want it. How are authorities reacting to the situation now?
Well, just before we answer that, just to give you an idea where we are on the other side of this whole protest side. We're about a kilometer away from where May Wong was standing, and you can see the people are lining up on the protest side all the way until here, and they're standing, they're sitting, and there's a very coordinated effort. As you can hear, it looks like they're about to disperse now, because we have heard earlier news that the protesters, one of the protesters' demands is actually that they want to hand over a pre-written resignation letter to Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha at Government House over there. Now that seems to have been achieved earlier this evening with a representative of the police. Yes, they are going home now. So we are keep on. Yep. I can confirm they are going home now. They are giving the hand signal, circling the finger into the air, that they're saying that they're going home now. They have these coordinated hand signs inspired by the protests in Hong Kong, where they have also similar hand signs for various commands, like when they need certain items to the front line, when they need certain first aid equipment. And it looks like here they have already achieved what they came out to be, but it has been some very tense few hours. At a police barricade not too far from here, there was a standoff, but until the police lines were actually duped by protesters coming from behind, the police then dispersed, making the police barricade very clear, and that's why the protesters were able to come all the way here to Government House to make their case heard. So basically, they have achieved now for the night. The thing is now, going forward, Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha has made that announcement that he is prepared to pull back the emergency decree in the evening at 7 p.m. That is while they were all walking here. That is while they were all marching here. So they might have not heard about that. But in any case, he is betting now on the parliamentary process, as Parliament will have a special session next week to talk about how to get out of this political crisis. The constitutional amendments is also on the card here. But the problem is not in Parliament. The problem goes beyond that. Yes, political reform can be done in Parliament, but it also starts and stops with the Government House and other branches of government, and beyond that as well. It's also about that they are sick and tired of military dominance in politics and the royal prerogative. And that's why they're saying, it ends with our generation.
The situation continues to evolve there in Bangkok. Saksith, thank you very much for that. May Wong and Saksith Sayasombat there reporting for us from Bangkok.